Good morning, afternoon, or evening, wherever you may be. May God bless you this day. So thank you for joining me today. Hey, I brought with me some water. I'm going to fill this cup here because I actually have two cups right here in front of you, but this is for illustration purposes. So I better not put any more in that. Um, one of these cups, this one right here, as you can see, it's full. Delicious tasting water. This one, well, it's empty. And I think that something that I've been dealing with, something I've been thinking about is grief. And grief can feel like it's suffocating us while we're standing still. This full one, think about this, grief tries to drain you, it tries to suck life out of you. And your job is to keep filling it up slowly, gently, one small thing at a time. Too often, people wait to feel better before living again. I recently had a friend of mine pass away, and I spoke at his funeral, and I talked about this: is that we wait to feel better before we start living again, and that's not what we ought to do. Feeling better comes by living, not before it. You don't heal and then return to life. You return to life, and then the healing follows. Every day, doing one small act of beauty can make a difference. Maybe something for someone else. You're not trying to forget. You're trying to remember the one you love is still here, and that fills your cup. Our goal is not to stop hurting. It's to keep pouring even while we are hurting. Healing isn't about waiting for the pain to disappear. It's choosing life while the pain is still present. First Corinthians or Second Corinthians chapter 2 speaks of God being the God of all comfort, who comforts us in our time of need, that we may take the comfort we receive from God and pass it on to others. In other words, we fill other people's cup before we fill our own. And your cup remains full when you do that. If you take a carrot and you drop it into boiling water, before long the carrot becomes soft. If you take a egg and drop it into boiling water, eventually the egg will become hard. But if you drop coffee beans into boiling water, magic happens and the water becomes coffee. We get to choose which we're going to be, a carrot, an egg, or coffee bean. So, do your surroundings change you, or do you change your surroundings? I read recently that Monday, January 19th, was National Quit Day. It's a day to quit. And some people have quit their New Year's resolutions way before January 19th. Some, maybe you've carried it on. And maybe today needs to be a quit day for you. Not from a resolution that you made back in the first of the year, but something else. What if you sat down with God the Father and said, "What do you want me to quit? And what do you want me to start?" What do you think He might tell you? And here's another question with that. How do you want me to quit? And how do you want me to start? I think God likes it when we ask Him questions because God speaks to us through a dialogue, not a monologue. I'm reminded of a woman that was caught in adultery in the Bible, and Jesus goes up to her and says, "Where are your accusers? I do not condemn you. Go and sin no more." In other words, He said, stop what you're doing and start doing something different. Or what about the man of the pool of Bethesda? He had healed him, and He sees him a few days later and says, "Stop sinning, or something worse may happen to you." The Bible says in Ephesians chapter 4, and something let me say it this way: God saw something better in you before the creation of the world. God saw something better in you before the creation of the world. It says in Ephesians chapter 1, starting verse 4, "For He chose us in Him before the creation of the world to be holy and blameless in His sight. In love, He predestined us for adoption to sonship through Jesus Christ, in accordance with His pleasure and will, to the praise of His glorious grace, which He has freely given the ones He loves. He started thinking of you before creation. I I think that maybe what a number of people need to do is sit down and slowly read Ephesians 1 and see what God is saying about them. Well, why don't you start reading that passage over and over and over and allow it to start soaking into your heart? Because I think these verses call us to start thinking about whose we are and God's opinion of us rather than anybody else's. And then go and begin filling other people's cups. And if you're concerned about what others think about you and how they treat you, I think what you need to do is start praying for them because it's impossible to hate or be frustrated with somebody that you're praying for. The cups, if this reminds you of a loved one that's gone, start living, start filling other cups, and remember that each day that goes by is another day closer to the reunion that you get to have with them. Blessings.